Hello BookTube. Today I'd like to have a bit of a quick chat about DNFing books. Now, as a rule, I don't DNF books, which I suppose means that I have read a lot of rubbish in my life. Up until the beginning of this year, I can think of 3 books that I've DNF'd. One, I can't remember the title or the name of the author, which is no loss to humanity at all. I know that I DNF'd The Count of Monte Cristo when I was about 10 or 11, possibly a bit challenging at that age. And I know I DNF'd Stephen King's It when I was at the end of high school because I felt it was going on its 10th tangent and the plot was going nowhere very slowly. But as a rule, I don't DNF books. Books are very expensive here, so besides that little voice at the back of my head that says, you have failed this book, I also feel that I have wasted a lot of money. Now, this year I have DNF'd 2 books already, which is 66% of that original total. And of course it's now getting me a bit concerned, and it's also making me think about what I'm reading and how I'm reading. And one of the things that, as I've said here, I'm obviously reading a lot of rubbish because there are books that I have picked up over the years that I think are absolute waste of trees. But I've continued reading them because I've bought them. So for this discussion, I have 3 books here. One I have finished, unfortunately, and the 2 that I've DNF'd this year. Okay, so the first one that I'm going to talk about is Stephen Leather's The Bombmaker. Now, I'm going to be quite open here and say that I have no great expectations when I pick up a crime or a thriller. I don't have any expectations for the writing. I don't really have much in the line of expectation for character. I just basically want a semi-decent plot that goes somewhere quickly. This is my guilty pleasure type of read. I am a teacher, and in the second term I have 26 exams and assessment tasks that I need to set, plus all the marking that I need to do. And I want something that I can take my brain at night, put it on the bedside table and say I'll wake you up when the alarm goes off at 10 to 6 in the morning. I'd want a low IQ read. So considering that I go in these kind of books with very, very low expectations, it's quite something when you actually are disappointed. Now, the first thing, although I've said that I don't expect great characters in books like this, I do expect to have some common sense, or at least some realism. Now, let's take this story, and I'm sorry this is going to be full of spoilers, but don't waste your life and buy it. It's not worth it. So, at the beginning of the story, the mom and dad find out that their little girl has been kidnapped, and the first thing that's got to happen is that, mom's got to faint, bash her head on the banister, knock herself out, leave some blood and hair evidence so that later the police are going to think her husband has made her disappear. First of all, do people really still faint? In the day and age where we don't wear corsets, is this still believable? The second thing is we then find out a little bit later, not much later, that mom was, when she was a little bit younger, making bombs for the IRA, and also was an informant for the police, informing them where these bombs were so that there would be the minimum amount of life lost. So that's a gutsy thing to do, and I didn't quite buy that this woman would just faint. It was a plot thing. The rest of the book was just as bad. In fact, this has to be the most boring thriller I have ever read, which is an oxymoron because thriller by definition is not boring. But besides being a great cure for insomnia, I could see no value to this book. But I still finished it, and I don't know why. It was a day of my holiday that I wasted. Now, the next book that I'm going to come to is a bit of a marketing con. And this is Pieces of 8 by John Drake. Now, nowhere in this book, front cover, back page, does this tell us that this is a second book in a trilogy. I know, small print, the legend of Treasure Island continues, but I'm thinking Treasure Island continues, Robert Louis Stevenson, yeah, I'd love to know what happens with Jim, etc. So I started reading this, and the beginning was quite interesting because we are hearing about Flint as a child and how he became who he was. It's just a small little section, a day in his childhood. And I thought that part was interesting. It was a great introduction to what could have been something spectacular. But then a whole lot of other people get involved, and I don't know who they are, and I've got Ben and Silver stranded on Treasure Island, and Flint has left them there, and I don't know why he didn't kill them. Basically, there were a lot of characters that I felt nothing for. I didn't know if I should be concerned for them or holding thumbs that, Stray Cannonball would come and take them out. But there was nothing in the story so far that was helping to fill in the blanks as to who these people were. And I'm being generous here, but I'm going to say that this suffered from second book syndrome, where nothing much was happening either. So the idea of heading off to go and buy book one is not appealing. So there's no point reading a second book in a trilogy where I don't have book one and I'm not going to get it, and which would then mean I get book three too. And I don't know, just because of an accidental buy. I mean, doesn't that look so exciting? That was just what I wanted for escapism there in that second term when I needed something to escape life. But anyway, so this one, I'm going to try and flog off to the second-hand bookshop down the road. Wish me luck. And then we get to the biggest disappointment of the year so far. And, well, there's still 5 months to go, so who knows, something might usurp it. But anyway, here we have Alexander McCall Smith's Emma. Now, before I start talking about this one, let me just say that, as a rule, I enjoy Alexander McCall Smith's books. He writes the #1 Ladies Detective Agency, which is set in Botswana, which is just a few thousand k's that way. And I love the way he captures these characters. The women, they're fantastic. I love the fact that they're flawed, but you love them for the flaws. The feeling of Ubuntu goes all the way through the books that I've read so far in the series. And as a whole, it's fantastic. And I thought because of those qualities that if somebody was going to do a modern retelling of Emma where I could feel sympathetic towards her and her faults, etc., maybe Alexander McCall Smith could be the guy to do it. So, modern retelling of Emma. Retelling, yes. Modern, not so much. In fact, that was where the big flaw was for me, is that the mindset of this book was still set in the late 1700s. There was no way that I could believe that this book was supposed to be set in the 21st century. It doesn't matter if the bloke rode a Ducati motorbike. The rest of it didn't fit. But you don't have to take my word for it. I would like to just read a little bit for you. So here you have Emma's father discussing her sister, Isabella. Now, Isabella is 17, and he's having this conversation with the governess, yes, in the 21st century. So he starts off, he says, "Boys?" Miss Taylor nodded. "Isabella is interested in boys. They're all she thinks about. They, I'm afraid to say, are her destiny." Well, folks, I don't know how to break this to you, but most 17-year-olds have, I don't want to say the opposite sex because that's the modern world, but sex on their mind. I wouldn't say it's their destiny. Well, I suppose they are destined at some point to have it, but, there's a little bit more to life than just sex. But anyway, so the conversation continues. "We need to marry her off," he muttered. Miss Taylor frowned. "I didn't think people spoke in those terms anymore." "I don't care," said Mr. Woodhouse. "The fact of the matter is that I have a daughter who's going to get herself involved in all sorts of affairs if we don't. That will happen unless we find a husband for her as soon as possible." What father in the 21st century is going to be thinking about marrying off his daughter at the age of 17, especially in England? Maybe some real backward countries I could understand, but not England, 21st century. And in case that wasn't enough, this is now a conversation between Emma and Miss Taylor, the governess, where Emma is saying that she does not want children because there's a whole lot of fumbling. I'm assuming she's talking about the conception and not the nappies. Anyway, so Miss Taylor smiled. "You shouldn't worry about that," she said. "That'll take care of itself. The important thing is to meet a young man whom you love." Did you hear that, ladies? The important thing is to find the young man whom you love. Bugger the career. You don't have to make a difference in the world. Not in the 21st century. We're going back in time. Find love. Oh, my inner feminist went and burnt bras and had a bonfire. I could not do this. I don't know if this is meant to be satire and I just missed out on the joke, but I just could not suspend belief enough to honestly believe that characters could be thinking that way in the 21st century. My grandmother is 95 and she's more modern, and that's saying a lot. So I could not continue with Emma. It went against all my principles, all my beliefs, everything that is who I am. Well, not everything, but a fair chunk. So I decided that for the sake of keeping fond memories of Jane Austen's Emma, I would just leave Alexander McCall Smith's attempt on its own. The other thing with this book is that it was too close of a retelling. Look, I only got up to page 136, so maybe things changed and I'm wrong. But the characters, the plot seemed very much the same. The characters had the same names. They were going in the same direction. And, you know, what's the point? I've read Emma by Jane Austen. I enjoyed Emma by Jane Austen. Why read a poorer version, which is, although in a more modern time, not? Why read a different version? I know the outcome. I mean, I'd be surprised if she didn't end up with Knightley. I really would be. I'm not going to read it to find out. If you do know, you can let me know in the comments below. I would be interested in case there's a change. But this could have been something so much better, you know, loosely based on, as opposed to a retelling. Anyway, so there's the three kind of books that I can justify DNFing mostly, because I find it hard to DNF books. The one is the meh book, the one like Stephen Leather's The Bombmaker, where there was no value to it, there was no point to it, there was nothing to it, it was just words on a page, it was a waste of a tree. When you accidentally buy a book in the middle of a series because they don't let you know that it's in the middle of a series, that one I can also understand DNFing, because to commit to a series, especially when you know nothing about it, is quite a request on your budget. And then obviously the book that just goes against the grain and beliefs. Now, I've been stalking people on BookTube for a couple of years. I'll confess here and say that this introvert took 5 years to get out a camera, or at least the iPad. But one of the things that has been brought up on BookTube over the years is that life is very short, and you know, unless you're Steve Donahue, there's no point in wasting time reading books that you don't like, because we can only read a limited number, unlike Steve. So I wholeheartedly agree with that. I can see the logic in it. But I can't get myself to go beyond the fact that I've spent money on this stuff, man. And, you know, if I'm going to spend money on it, I'd like to enjoy it. Otherwise, I might as well go buy cows on Farmville or something, you know. So there's that. But I don't know how else to cure this, because it's a catch-22. Either I go into a bookshop knowing exactly what I want to read, where I know I will enjoy it 100% guaranteed, which is a bit redundant because I know then the outcome of the story, and there's no point in reading it. Or else doing what I did again today, and that's heading in, going, oh, this looks interesting, and just pick it up. Mostly I'm quite lucky because the ladies at my regular bookshop know me quite well, and they know my taste. So when something comes in that they think I will like, and they've always been right so far, they let me know. But without them, I don't know what else I would do. I mean, libraries here are so out of date, and the opening times don't quite coincide with people who hold down jobs. So, I don't know. I'd be interested to know what you do for DNFing books. Are you more open to DNFing books? Do you also sit and plow through it even if you don't enjoy it? Or do you... Yeah, I'd love to know what you think on this topic. Let me know down below and I'll get back to you. Thank you.